Uh, but it is exciting to be in the gallery. We're really happy to be here. You know, we're all fighting a whole lot of stuff right now. But just looking out and seeing some faces in an audience is just a beautiful thing. So I just want to let you know. We are going to have our second storyteller tonight, and her name is Anna Limontas-Salisbury. She is a New York City poet, writer, freelance journalist, and educator. Her poetry appears in Emotive Fruition, performance series, Heartbreaker, Verse Maker, Came Back with a Clapback, which was the title of her poem, and Let Lighting Set Us on Fire 2020, and corresponding chaplets. She's been a featured poet at Camperdown, a poetry reading series at Halyards, Honey Dip Productions, Girlhood 2020, and most recently, Body Love Open Mic Series. Excerpts from her nonfiction essays were performed with Counterpoint Reading Series, and she credits her keeping of memory and storytelling to her Geechee great-grandparents. She is a graduate of Hunter College and Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism at CUNY. She is the mother of 2 young adults making their way through CUNY and grand diva to 1 granddaughter. Ladies and gentlemen, Anna Limontas-Salisbury.
Oh my God, I sound awesome. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here for a storytelling honoring our ancestors. I'm very happy and very pleased to be here, and want to tell a story about one of my ancestors. I was thinking one way, but then it's kind of like an ancestor kind of spoke to me today and said, no, this is a story you should tell. So I want to tell the story. I want to tell you about my dad, who we called Pop. I was raised with both parents. They were the kinds of parents in the 1970s that had 4 different kinds of shifts. So they each had a day job, or my mom had the day job. She was a nurse, a surgical nurse, and an emergency room nurse in the Bronx at Montefiore by day. And then my dad had the evening shift at Nestle's. When my mom came home, she always smelled like Estee Lauder. And when my dad came home, he always smelled like coffee grinds. He worked at the Nestle's factory in town. And so they would each have these separate shifts with us as children. I want to paint a little picture about my dad. So my dad, this is the early 70s. My dad was very much of that time. Black man, very proud, a huge afro, a beard. He called everybody bro. He slapped other Black men high five, you know, or what they just called like slap you five. When he pulled up to the gas station, he said things like, hey man, fill her up. And, you know, he was just friendly to everybody. Everybody liked him. He played Miles Davis and Ray Charles and Sam and Dave in the house. He smoked Marlboros, and he wore an Applejack hat over the afro, sort of tilted to the side. When he wasn't wearing that uniform, he was just sharp in a sweater and slacks and a leather jacket. And while all the other kids called their dads, you know, dad, or, you know, their fathers, you know, our dad was Pop. And secretly, sometimes I like to think that he was Shaft himself. On his day to parent, it was very loosey-goosey in the house. You know, my sister and I were young. We were 4 and 5 years old. We'd watch cartoons until he'd wake up. On a typical Saturday morning, his idea of a hot breakfast was eggs over easy with the yolks and or frosted flakes. But since he thought we needed a hot breakfast, his idea of the hot breakfast was to heat up milk and pour it over the frosted flakes. You know, we were very not so keen about those meals. On a typical Saturday afternoon, we would watch sports with him. He put on Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, and we'd watch them duke it out. We used to pretend to be waitresses and take his orders while he was watching those games, and would stand there pretending with a pad to take his order. And he'd always say things like, give me 2 cheeseburgers and a Pepsi. And we'd say, coming right up. And we'd return with 2 Play-Doh burgers. And then we'd wait for him to stand there. We'd wait for him to eat it. He smoked a pipe, but when he smoked cigarettes, we would often hide them. And when he fell asleep on the couch during those football game after football game with Howard Cosell announcing everything, my sister and I finally had our chance to get at that afro. We would braid it, we would twist it, we would put in rubber bands, dippity-doo, barrettes, everything. I'd braid the tiniest plaits in his hair. And when our mom came home, she'd just shake her head, and he'd be like, what? And she'd show him, go look in the mirror. And then they'd spend hours untangling all that hair. He really was a wonderful dad at that time in our lives. And then as we grew older, we sort of seemed more distant. He was not as engaged. I don't know. The fun dad just seemed to become the more protective dad with, be careful of going here and there and do your chores. And no, you can't go, to that rockathon to raise money for your marching band. It's an overnight thing. Girls don't stay out overnight. No, you can't take your bike to the lake at 6 a.m. to ride. Anything could happen to you. And so we kind of started to grow a little further apart. I was basically in my room all the time, listening to rock music, anything that was different, unlike parents. And I stayed in my room reading and writing for most of the time. And he just thought that was strange. What does a girl do sitting and reading and writing? What's she reading? What's she writing? And as I got older, he just became even more protective. But we weren't. It was more like when we got together, it was the niceties of, okay, we're here at Thanksgiving, but when you call home, you know how you call and you speak to your mom and your dad just says, hey, from the background. That's pretty much what our relationship started to be like. He was so protective that even when I decided to get married, he had called me home, and he and my mother wanted to talk. And I couldn't imagine that they were going to try to talk me out of this marriage. But my dad was like, no, let's talk about this, because I don't think this is a good guy. I don't, what does he have to offer you? So my dad started to play like, let's make a deal. And he said, one of the things that, we could do is, you don't have to get married. You could take my apartment. I have an apartment. And at that time, I'm sorry, he and my mother were separated, and then they got back together. And when they got back together, they were making decisions about the way they wanted to sort of continue to steer us. So to talk me out of this marriage, my dad said, you can have my apartment. I'll help you get your driver's license. You can take my old car. You don't have to go to school in the city. You could switch to Rutgers. I'll pay for everything. And that was just not cool with me. I was like, no. I want to marry this man. I want to be there with him. And so I said no to all of that. And unwillingly, my parents went along with this marriage. In the car on the way to the wedding, my father was still trying to talk me out of this marriage. And he said to me, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. And I said, no, I want to, Dad. It's, I love him. I want to be with him. And he's like, okay. We're walking, getting out of the limousine and into the church, and we're standing there, and he's like, if you wanted to walk away right now, I wouldn't let anybody say anything to you. I'd walk right out right now. And now we're like standing at the front, the music is playing, and I'm like, no, I want to do this. My father kept whispering to me right up until the altar, until it was time to hand over my hand to the man I wanted to marry. And he was not happy about that, but I was glad that he was there. As time went along and that marriage broke up and I moved on to another marriage, And there became this point in our relationship where my dad was just said one day to me at a family gathering, like, I didn't raise you to be this way. And I didn't know what he was talking about. I was like, what is he talking about? I have 2 degrees now, or I'm working on the second, and I have 2 children, and we have a home, and it's a lovely home, and it's, you know, we're working people. We're doing okay. I'm doing okay. And he just shook his head and said, no, I'm just not happy with these choices that you've made. I didn't raise you to be this way. And I never knew what was this way? What was this way that he wanted me to be? And I just struggled with that. That Christmas, we had an argument after that, revelation of, I didn't raise you to be this way. And we basically left. My kids, my husband, we left. My brother and his wife left. Everybody was just miserable. My dad was just not feeling it that Christmas, feeling any of us, and he left. And I remember being so upset and just sobbing and leaving, like, I don't know what's going on with my dad. He's never treated me this way before. Like, I know I'm different. I know we don't always agree, but I don't know what is going on. And I remember my brother consoling me later and saying, don't worry. It's okay. It's okay. Dad is going through something, and he's going to need you one day. And I didn't know what my brother was talking about. Need me for what? My dad doesn't need me. He's just so disappointed with me. And so several years later, a few years later, like, I remember we didn't talk for a good 6 months or so. And then I remember my mom calling me one day and saying, I just wanted you to know, your dad is having surgery today. And I was like, surgery for what? And she said, oh, well, they went in for a biopsy and they were looking at his kidney, and they saw something and they decided to just take the kidney. I just wanted you to know. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, oh, okay. So then I started, just to think about, like, okay, I should be a little nicer. Maybe I should be the person who's leaning in more to my dad. I should stop waiting for him to lean into me. And so, after that big blow up that Christmas, I decided to host the next Christmas, and it just wasn't any better. It was kind of chilly. My husband was like, we ate together, but my husband mostly stayed in the next room after the dinner was over. And we didn't have the bigger family gathering like we usually have. It was just quiet. And, they enjoyed the meal and then they left. And then the third Christmas came and we had a big blowout Christmas. We invited everybody over, the cousins, the friends, and we had this wonderful time. And I noticed that my dad was sitting in a corner, kind of like, just real quiet. Like, he played cards for a while with some neighbors that came over, but then he just seemed to doze off sleeping. And I kind of thought that was odd. Like, why would he be sleeping? He's always the one, like, it's rude to sleep at people's houses when they bring you over, when they invite you over. And so a few months later went by, and my mom said, well, he's not been feeling well, but I think it's sciatica. And so time moves on a little bit, and we find out that the sciatica is not sciatica. I get a phone call as I was going to visit him with some lovely banana bread and a split pea soup that I had made him, because make you something, He was like, oh, that banana bread that you make when you come over with the kids and everything, that's really good. And, and I like split pea. I used to give you guys split pea when you were kids. And I was like, yeah. So on my way to visit, I don't realize that my phone is off, and that when I'm almost at their house, I realize I've missed messages from early that morning while I was baking the banana bread. And my mom sends a message and it says, your father is in the emergency room. We've been here all night. I've been trying to reach you. Your father has a tumor in his abdomen, and he has stage 3 cancer. I was floored. I didn't know what to think. And then as I got there, to visit him in the hospital, I'm feeling like stage 3, like, oh my God. But my dad was really pleasant, happy that I was there. Everybody else seemed to be concerned, my mother, my brother, but he just seemed, really pleasant. And so I started spending a little bit more time at home with him, especially to give my mom respite. And there was a day where it was a really tough day. And I stayed with him while my mom went to take care of some of her own medical needs. And I struggled getting my dad to the bathroom, something that I never saw myself doing. He was just so weak and so upset. And I just remember him saying to me, "Oh, this is just terrible. I can't do this anymore. I just want to die." And I just was like, "No, you can't say that. You can't say that. Like, it's going to be okay." And so after that really tough day of struggling to get him from one place in the house to the other, from the bathroom and back to his easy boy chair so he could watch the hated Fox News, and getting him to try to eat some things, I started to see him very differently. And I remember he just looked at me one day and he said, that same afternoon where we were struggling like that, and he said to me, "You know, you've really been a daughter to me." And I didn't ask him what he meant. I mean, the moment was filled with so much. We were both, tired from the activity of trying to take care of him in the same way that he had always taken care of me when I can remember being a little kid. And we did stay taking care of him pretty much almost until the end. And then we decided, after a few days of him being in what was supposed to be rehab, and the doctors coming to us and saying, he just needs, this is not going to get better. He's now at stage 4. And what should happen is maybe he's asking to go home. And so we kind of all sat there, me and my mom and my cousin, and we took a deep breath and said, "Okay, so we're going to make arrangements for him to come home." And so in the flurry, we took one day to arrange hospice and everything. And we told him, "It's going to be okay. We're going to bring you home." And I remember we all sort of stood around in a circle saying our goodbyes, like, "We'll see you tomorrow." And I remember he grabbed my hand, and by then he had stopped speaking, but still was very animated. And he grabbed my hand and he turned it over and he gave me a kiss in my palm of my hand. And I was just so moved by that. And I just thought, like, "We'll see you tomorrow." And tomorrow never came, because by the time we went back to pick him up, we got a phone call the next morning saying that, yeah, he had passed away. And I want to tell you that the veil between those who transition and those of us who are still here is very, very thin. My father started making appearances to both me and my mother on several occasions, so much so that I could smell him in the room. He used to wear Brut cologne, and I could smell that. I could smell coffee grinds. I could smell Marlboro cigarettes. And every single time that I am in trouble, I end up having a dream. There's even been a dream where we sat one time and he handed me a loaf of bread, like a French bread. And we were sitting across from each other in the room that I was renting, then sharing with roommates. And we were breaking this bread together and he was handing it to me. And my friend, who likes to interpret dreams, she said, "Anna, you don't have anything to worry about. I know you miss your dad, but your dad is still here with you. He's still guiding you. He's still leading, he's still steering, and he still wants so much more for you." So I honor him today. His birthday was this month. And I just wanted to tell you that story about my pop. Thank you.
That was great. That was great.
Thank you for sharing that. That was awesome.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you,
I'm
Anna.
like, oh, I don't want to cry.
And most definitely,
You're
we've
welcome.
got some kind of a sign, because this is not what we talked about. But I am glad that you told the story that you felt in your heart and your soul. Thank you for that. We are about to take a break for 10 minutes. We're going to play a little music. Terence thinks he's a DJ, so it's going to be fine. And then we will come back and we'll talk about this lovely exhibit behind us. And we just want to thank the storytellers that have gone so far. And we're looking forward to the next stories that we get to hear. Thank you very much.
This is so cool, everybody. Hey, everybody. So what are you guys doing in the gallery? Is there music? Oh, good.
I'm here in the gallery doing AV. Unfortunately, we can't have speakers on for everybody and the audio, or else
Right.
feedback. So they were wanting me to unmute everybody so you guys could talk amongst yourselves and so that we could hear you. But I was like, I don't know if they're going to talk amongst themselves, and what if they don't want to be unmuted? So I don't have any music for you. Terry didn't have any queued up. But if you want, I can unmute the gallery audio so that you can hear everybody else talking.
Oh, that's cool.
Do you guys want that? I know. Unfortunately, technology is not a unicorn, and you can't get everything you want more. But
Yeah.
all right, I am gonna go
I think it's
the audio. What were you gonna say, Anna?
I was gonna say it's pretty cool. I was like gonna say, is what? Or is that what? Like what? Because unfortunately, like we just got that once, static shot. So I was just like, is that a curtain? And I was like, no, I think it's work.
It's actually real flags, right?
I know, it's insane. I'm liking. I keep.
Oh, that's a flag.
Yeah, it's a. Oh, yeah. We haven't talked to. I think they'll probably talk to the installation after the break, right?
Okay.
Talk about the installation after the break. I got some New York pizza, you guys. Don't be jealous.
Oh, that's not fair, Melanie. Not fair at all.
Oh, Mima, I knew you were gonna unmute just to come and say that. I saw all that stuff you were cooking the other day. It looked amazing.
But there's dishes afterwards. That doesn't have dishes afterwards.
See, Terry had his phone showing everybody else in the gallery, but his phone died, unfortunately. Wow.
Oh man.
I'll see if I can turn my computer around. It's plugged into this crazy. Here we go. All right, I'm gonna go eat the pizza so you can't hear me chill.
Enjoy.
Yeah. And I'm gonna unmute Monica so that I don't get any.
To address my brother.
The other, right?
There's no dates.
No.
So do you want to say something about your? Okay. Tell me when to go.
You're good.
Oh, all right. So, my name's Lily. Our next storyteller is coming up very soon. But first, I'd like to tell you a little bit. Oh, no. Opposite. But first, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about what's behind me here, the exhibition by Stephanie Dinkins. And here to tell you more about it is our artistic director at Open Source, Monica Ver.
So when you come into the gallery, you would do the same. Actually, you would come on the stage. We are standing now on the stage. The show by Stephanie Dinkins. We're kind of doing something that's kind of weird because there is a camera just behind that camera. And that camera is actually live streaming right now. So I don't know, we're kind of like doubling up some technology in a way that's not very, you know, very advanced. I think we just didn't know how to do it differently. Anyway, so so Stephanie Dinkins is an artist that works a lot with artificial intelligence. And when you come into this space right now, you get live streamed. You can, this is kind of like a people's corner stage in a way. The flags behind me are flags, American flags, but the complementary colors. So the show is also called Complementary. And the sentence that is projected on the wall, usually where I'm projected right now, that is, if you want to talk to the most powerful person then in the world, what would you tell them about you and your community? I think, you know, it's probably a little bit something like that. And that's really what the show is about.
You mentioned the gala.
Yes, and then we have a fundraiser coming up, really important. That's actually on November 6th, 7 p.m. Register for a ticket. It's free. You can also give something. Obviously, if you give like a lot, like $150, then you can also get a basket delivered by me or Lily or Lisa.
What's in that basket?
Wine, cheese.
That's already worth $150.
I know. Anyway, but then there's also going to be art available. It's a whole month. So yeah, please register because the more the merrier.
Monica, we're also
Thank
going to
you.
put the website up on the Zoom chat so they can donate via How to Lit a Fire too.
Okay, awesome. Yes, great. Thank you.
Yay! Thank you, Monica. All right, so I don't want to delay anymore. Our next storyteller is a man that I met in the park. I'm a musician, as some of you know, and I was looking for some place to play because we can't play anywhere except the park. So a friend of mine said, "Oh, come out and play with Francis Jacob. He's great." So we started this thing where we were playing outside the, what's it called, the Musicians Grove or something. I think it's a place where people go and pee a lot because it sort of smells. But it's a very nice area acoustically, and people walk by and we would play. And so anyway, it turned into this concert series we were doing here at the gallery. And I really, really enjoyed playing with him over this last few months and enjoyed getting to know him a little bit better. Francis Jacob is French born, a musician who has lived in France, Switzerland, Brazil, and for the past 20 years, New York City. Initially a jazz artist, he's been playing with an impressive variety of West African artists, Kine Lam, Sakuba Kandia Kuyate, Ibro Diabate, to name a few, while being a core member of various African-related bands in New York City. He also works on personal projects. The band If, based in France. His latest band, interpreted by Dr. COVID, is called Brassbrook, and is devoted to playing the music of composer George Brassens, along with Nigerian percussionist and Senegalese bass. Twice nominated for Grammys Awards for his compositions, Francis Jacob has been releasing CDs with the labels Universal, Sunnyside, and Naive. Please welcome Francis Jacob.
I'm going to tell you a story tonight about otherness, about cultures, about different cultures. We all realize diversity. We know that diversity exists, of course. We know that on this planet we have lots of different cultures, but we don't always cross paths with these cultures. We might live our whole life happily, easily, in our own culture. Well, this story happened 35 years ago in the 80s. I was in my early 20s, and I just graduated from a prestigious music school in the United States. And I decided to take on the music scene in Paris, France. So I moved to Paris, and it was difficult to find an apartment, but I found an apartment in a ghetto, in a neighborhood that doesn't exist anymore today. It was an immigrant's neighborhood. It didn't have a very good reputation, but I was very happy with my apartment. It had 2 big rooms. It was in a run-down building, had plastic windows, leaking toilet, but I was happy. I put an ad in the papers to find students so I could pay the rent. At night, I would play places, I would listen to music. During the day, I would set the metronome and practice the mandolin, the guitar, and I was living in my little world. And then one night, something happened. I came home, as usual, maybe at 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. So this was not a very good neighborhood. I had to go in this dark street and make a right in this pitch dark alley, dead end. And my key, opened it, and I see this man. An African man with a big overcoat, something behind his back. I say, hello, good night. He says, very nicely, he says, sir, do you know what time it is? I say, it's 1:30 at night. He says, do you know by any chance the neighbors? I say, which neighbors? He says, Khalifa and Masane. I say, no, I don't know Khalifa, I don't know Masane. He says, I've been waiting for them all night. I was about to go home. The guy looked nice. He didn't look like a bad guy. I say, listen, if you want to come home and crash it, I have an extra mattress. Just come. And he came. He was a little bit surprised, but he was very happy. And he came and crashed in this extra mattress and this pad that I had, bachelor pad. And the next day we had coffee together, a piece of bread. His name was Salomon Diakité. He was twice my age, big overcoat. He had a conservative newspaper under his arm. He had a card of a political party, very conservative. It seems to me, he seems like he wanted me to be more French than French. This was my first. And he was from Senegal, West Africa, Salomon Diakité. I told him, listen, Salomon, if ever you're in a pickle ever again, I have this mattress here. You can always crash. He says, thank you very much. And he left. He came back the same afternoon with his toothbrush. And he stayed with me for 4 months. Until my sister came one day, and we had to find another place, and I moved out, and this is how. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Salomon. I just said a few words, but now we might think, and what happened to him? Why did he need a place? Why did he need to crash in my mattress? Why did he stay for 4 months with me? This man which was in the middle of life, and how did I accept it? I was 22, 23, maybe, cool with my guitar. It was like a 45-year-old guy. Not at all the same vibe. Nice man. And it worked out. It did work out perfectly. Now let me tell you about Salomon Diakité. Salomon Diakité was born in Senegal, West Africa, in a town in Saint Louis. Diakité, his last name, a Senegalese would know that his last name is noble. You have to know that in West Africa, the society is made out of castes. People are born in a caste and they stay in that caste. Up to today in Senegal, no leader, no political leader is not a noble. All of them are not. So he came at 20 years old or something, he came to the capital, to Dakar. He was given a government job. He had a beautiful office. He had the AC. So he told me the story. He had an AC. He had the driver with a Mercedes. And he had nothing to do. Just an empty desk. This is where he told me. An empty desk. Days, weeks, months passed. He says, what is this? People say, why do you complain? Do you complain? You have an AC. You have a Mercedes. Don't complain. But this was not Salomon. He needed to take on life. And he left. And he decided to go to France as an immigrant. And he decided to embrace the French culture and the French lifestyle. He fell in love with a French woman. They got married. He had a job, he had an apartment. He had 3 children. Everything is nice. Now, can we put aside where we come from? Can we forget about where we come from? Are we master of our destiny? Yes or no? Some people will say, yes, we are. Some people will say, no. The truth is, we don't always choose. One day, years and years later, Salomon had a letter in the box. It was a letter from his dad in South Africa, who told him, Salomon, your brother died in the village. Your brother died, you have to come back to the village and take care of his widow. And you have to marry his widow. Salomon embraced the French lifestyle. He had a job, he had kids, he had a woman, a wife. He sent a letter back to his dad. He said, this is not possible. The dad wrote back. He said, I'm not asking you for a favor. I'm telling you about your duty. This is what you have to do. What would you do? Well, Salomon chose to stay in France. And Salomon embraced the French lifestyle. But in him, he had the African. And what did he have Africa? In the same month, he lost all of his saving in a scam. He lost his job. His wedding fell apart. He had to find a new apartment. He found a new apartment, and the new apartment fell apart. In 1 month, he became homeless with no money, no job, and no family. Salomon told me, this is a spell from my family. Can we escape? Obviously, he could not. If he would have been very happy to escape. Is it something we truly believe inside, so we are slaves of what we believe? Or is it plainly true? The truth is that we are human, and human is not rational. And Salomon was in this situation. So this is how Salomon became my roommate. He was a very nice person. He was friends with the neighbors. The first night I told you, he says, do you know the neighbors? The neighbors were Massané and Khalifa. These 2 persons were living as making a living as marabout. Marabout is, you can translate it as a wise man or as a shaman or as a magician. They were handling cards in the subway, advertising for the talents, issues of love, issues of career, issues of money, issues of sports. They would deal with it. So, and they are very popular in West Africa. Marabout. Some of them are very, very revered, but all politicians have marabout, and some of them are very respected, wise men. Some of them are a little bit crooks, because there's everything. of those two, I really like them a lot. They were nice people, and so since I got close to Salomon, I was invited to the apartment of Massanet and Khalifa. Getting to the apartment was quite something. It was really Africa. As well as a white person, sometimes we say, "Oh, I have a black friend," and we'd be happy about it. It was the same for them. It was the same for them. They were happy to have a white friend because the French society is so closed that for them to have a white friend is an achievement, because they live in a parallel world. As I got to know Salomon from the inside, all this magic, all these spells, everything, which we don't see when we see people walking. But this is, so Massanet and Khalifa would invite me for tea. I would invite them for tea also. We would speak. I don't know why some satellite was launched to Mars, maybe. They say, "Ah, you believe the Americans, you think they went to the moon?" I said, "Well, they did go to the moon." They say, "Ah," and they start talking with them. They say, "If you go to, why do you believe that? You're a little naive." They say, "If you go to the moon, what do you do? If I go to the moon, you go there, then you paint it. You paint it blue so people can see." So this was the absolute proof that I didn't go to the moon. So then I turned to my friend Salomon and I said, "Salomon, tell them." And Salomon tells me, "No, I think they're right." Salomon, who embraces the French lifestyle. And then they leave. And then I tell Salomon, "Salomon, really, do you believe that?" He says, "No, Francis. I believe like you. But I cannot say this in front of them. Because if I tell them what I believe, they're not going to accept me anymore. They're going to cast me aside. They say, 'Oh, he doesn't think like an African anymore. He's not African anymore. He's French.' And he couldn't afford that. He was in a situation where he was not accepted by the French. He had to be accepted by the Africans. So sometimes your convictions are not only what you believe, but what you have to believe in order to be part of a group. One day, Salomon told me, so there were two marabouts. Massanet was younger, in his 30s, very easygoing, fun man, with humor. The other one was a little bit older, more serious, Khalifa. One day, Salomon told me, "Khalifa wants to read your star. He wants to calculate your star." I said, "Sure, yeah." Bring him over. He says, "Tomorrow at 4. I said, "Sure, tomorrow at 4. Yeah. So then the next day at 4, put my guitar on the stand, and I opened the door, and Khalifa came. He was in an extraordinary dress. He was beautifully set. And he came with an interpreter. He would not speak French this time. it was a big ceremony. I didn't expect this at all. We sat down. He had a bowl of water, took the water, he did all types of stuff. And then he told me, listen, I mean, he told me through in the gutter, you're a Frenchman. You are watching me like a postcard, like television. For you, it's entertainment. I know. But he says, be aware that on my side, I am doing my job. And I know what I'm doing. So whatever you want to hear, be free. But keep in mind that on my side, I'm a serious man. So he told me that my life would go good and everything, but I had to do a sacrifice. I had to sacrifice a lamb. A lamb. A lamb. Imagine myself like Abraham. I say, Khalifa, I cannot sacrifice a lamb. He says, no, but you just give the money and then we take care of it. I'm not sacrificing no lamb. You know. So he said, well, you can sacrifice if you want some expensive fabric called bazin. The main idea was to make a sacrifice, which actually, to get down to business, it was about maybe today's money would be maybe $1,500, $2,000, which was a lot of money. For me at the time, I was broke. If really I would have had to, I could have maybe scraped that money, but it was. So what should I do? And then I thought, and I told him, listen, I was raised Christian, and in my religion, in my teaching, I was not a big practicing Christian, but in my teaching, God does not ask for sacrifices, so I can go without it. I'd rather go without it. He says, do whatever you want. Now, if I would have taken the other choice, would things have went differently? Maybe yes, maybe no. But one thing for sure is, I've learned through life that whenever you give, and it hurts giving, you get back. And I think that's what he meant. And I was not ready to do it. And 4 months later, my sister came to Paris. And we had to find a new apartment. We wouldn't spend the winter in that place. I told Salomon, we're going to have to part. Salomon said, I understand. He says, thank you so much for helping me out. And he brought me a gift. The gift was a little ashtray in the shape of a foot, which says best friend forever, something like this. It's a clay ashtray. I said, oh, great, Salomon, thank you so much. You know, at the time we were all smoking. And so we moved out with my sister. We found another apartment. We got lucky. The moving went smoothly. And a few days after, or 2 weeks later, maybe Salomon came for a visit, for a friendly visit. And we had coffee. He took out a cigarette, he says. And I brought the ashtray. Now it happens that during the moving, nothing broke except the ashtray. No. My sister broke it by mistake. Now, we could say it's an accident, but no. He looked at the ashtray. I glued it back together. It was there. But he knew, he said, something has been broken. And my sister broke it. And this is how, this was my relationship with Solomon. Maybe 15 years later, 20 years later, I called him back. and he was blind. He's living in a little studio in Paris. And this is it. This is my first encounter with a different culture.
I don't meet such interesting people in the park. Okay, we are coming up to our final storyteller tonight. Before we begin, I want to tell you this is probably my first Halloween costume in 40 years. We were not allowed to do Halloween. There was bad spirits and all that stuff. Plus, we lived in the hood, so people hit us with eggs, so we didn't do all that stuff. But anyway, my granddaughter sent this to me, and she said, I found you one that was leopard. I knew it was for you. So, all right. This has been a wonderful evening. I can't wait for more wine. So, our final storyteller tonight, I will read you his bio. Victor Holden was raised a military kid traveling the United States. He attended high school in Pueblo, East Colorado, the place he calls his hometown. He is a proud Hampton University graduate and covets the value of an HBCU education. He earned his master's in counseling at Purdue University in Northwest Indiana. Hampton U is where he met his wife of 20 years and who, according to Victor, finally wised up and married him after 8 years of courting. Victor, father of 5 and grandfather of 2, calls his family his lifeline. Presently, Holden is an EEO investigator for the city of Kansas City, Missouri. Simply put, his job is to investigate complaints of discrimination and harassment. Holden loves his job because he has a passion for justice and affirming equal treatment for all individuals without distinctions of race, gender, or sexual orientation. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend, Victor Holden.
Thank you, Jackie, for that warm welcome. I certainly appreciate it. I don't know if I can measure up to all the stories that have been told this evening, but I will certainly do my best to at least impart upon you some historical knowledge from the Holden household. So I have given a title to my story, and the title is Fixing It, not fixing, fixing it with food. So the story begins with my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, who was the only girl of 6 children. She suffered a stroke at a very young age and was forced to take on a more of a matriarch role in the home because her mother also suffered a stroke around the same time and was incapacitated. So in taking on the matriarch role, my grandmother was responsible for caring for and feeding her 5 uncles, 5 brothers, her claim to fame was I lost connection for a moment there. Can you all hear me? Thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay, excellent. So yeah, as I was saying, you've not had a carrot sweet potato pie like my grandmother's carrot sweet potato pie. Anyway, fixing it with food is all about what her claim to fame has now come to be. And that is whatever you have going on, whether you're depressed, whether you're happy, whether you're sad, whether you're going through a situation, come on in the kitchen, sit at the dining room table, let grandma fix you some food. Now, again, my grandmother suffered a stroke at a very young age, which forced my mother to step up and take on that role of fixing it with food. My mother has cookbooks galore. Betty Crocker reaches out to my grandma, my mother, to find out what's in the cookbook. What can I fix? My mother took on the role of fixing it with food by learning how to prepare the carrot sweet potato pies. Not with the store-bought pie crust, but with homemade pie crust and all homemade fixings. My grandmother used to fix so many pies that by the time my mom learned how, my grandmother was probably preparing somewhere between 400 and 500 pies a year and giving them to homeless people and passing them off to friends and family. Well, of course, my mother thought, I don't know that I could fix that many pies, but Mama, since you are not in a position to be doing that over a long period of time, I will take on that responsibility. Well, my mother did take on that responsibility, and she began preparing the 400 to 500 pies for the homeless, for family members, namely her uncles and her brothers and her nephews, and passing them on. So, where does that bring us? That brings us to where my mom is today. My mother is the better part of, well, she's in her late 70s. And to date, she has prepared, I've kept count, over 20,000 pies in her lifetime. She continues to prepare those pies for church members, for friends, for family members, for her uncles, for her nephews, for her cousins, for her children. And she calls that her way of giving back a piece of what she has received from her mother. Now, I remember when I was about 12 years old, I asked my mom, why do you fix all of these pies? What is it in these pies? What is it in this food that gives you such gratification and satisfaction? And she simply responded, I find solace and joy in being able to give to somebody something that was passed on to me. Well, at the tender age of 12 years old, and the curious person that I was and am, I said, I want to learn how to fix these pies, Mama. So she taught me how to make these pies. Now, my mom at her age has suffered some health challenges and no longer able to fix the enormous number of pies that she has for so many years. Victor has chosen to take on that role. I have taken on that role, and I make pies for the people that she chooses for me to make the pies for, and I mail them to her so that she could distribute them accordingly. It's not just the pies, though. It's the food. It's the Thanksgiving meals. It's the meals that occur on Sunday afternoons where anybody and everybody is invited. My mother is the oldest living female in the family, and she is destined and determined to ensure that her legacy is extended. Well, extended to who? She didn't have any daughters. You guys might know me from America's Top Chef season 2, Iron Chef season 2. Okay, all right, that's a joke. That's a joke. We were telling stories, so that's a lie. But anyway, oh, I have chosen to pride myself on preparation of meals, much like my mother has and her mother before her has, for family members, for friends, for homeless people, for the community, and for anybody that wants to eat. Knock on my door and say, you're hungry? No problem, I'm gonna feed you. Nothing in the fridge, we'll go to the store. Excuse me. I get emotional because that is such a rich tradition that my grandmother has passed on to my mother and my mother to me, and I have now passed it on to my youngest daughter, who is 15 years old, and in recent months has expressed interest in learning to cook good food, not just food, but good food, and to share that good food with other people. So this Thanksgiving, my daughter, 15, will cook an entire Thanksgiving meal for 30 plus people that we are hosting at our house. More importantly, she has learned to make the pies, and she is committed to making at least one pie to be served on Thanksgiving for Thanksgiving dinner. Hopefully, eventually she'll take on the role that my mother and I have taken on in choosing to make pies for others and give back to the community and to give back to the family, much like she has learned to do through me, through my mother, through my grandmother. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right, we're here. We're here. That was a great story.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, I'm glad you got that bottle of wine. Okay.
Where's the pie?
Don't even talk about it because I have not had a pie yet.
Oh boy,
Victor's my brother.
Jackie.
He is that person I can call at any time, and now it will be for pie as well. We want to thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. And now you've given us a good idea for Soup Kitchen, I think, this year. Because because of COVID, we haven't been able to do the traditional Soup Kitchen, but I think maybe we'll start a pie thing.
Oh, that's
Yeah, I think we should give away pies. That's a good idea.
Good idea. We need to get some
we need some
potato.
recipe. We need
That's
recipe.
right.
I can't give you the
Potato
recipe.
pie,
If I give you the recipe, I
All
gotta
right,
cook
we
it.
want to thank you very much. We will be back next month. We will let you know the day that we're coming back, but we want you to be with us all season. My thanks to my co-hosts, to Open Source Gallery, and to everyone that was here tonight, everyone joining us.
Yay!
We love this. Thank you.
And come by and see the show if you're in Brooklyn. Open Source Gallery is on the 17th near 6th Avenue. I think you're having the open hours are 12 to 6 on Saturdays, Sundays.
Yeah.
So,
And also we're gonna put it on the website with the questions to be able to answer.
yes.
Okay, join us on November 6th.
Yes.
We would look forward to seeing you guys. All right, good night. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Fantastic.
Sometimes we go down to Freddy's to get a drink afterwards, so you're welcome to come join us.
That table's on the front and
Thank you, everybody. Victor, I hope you put some information in the contact in the
That was
chat.
nicer than you think.
Because I'm like, I need to have one of these pies now.
Come on to KC. I'll make sure I make you one nice and fresh.
All right, because I know sweet potato pie, but carrot sweet potato, okay, that's something else.
Yeah. It's something to holler about, seriously.
Okay, thank you so much for that story. It was wonderful.
Thank you, Anna. Yours was wonderful as well. Very, very,
And
very,
blessings.
very touching. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
thank
I'm
you.
sorry.
Thank you. And blessings. And blessings to that 15-year-old. You know, I'm so
She doesn't
excited
know
to
what's
hear
in
that.
store for her, but hey, it's a learning experience. You gotta start somewhere.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Well, blessings, everybody. Thank you so much. This was awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Yes, indeed. You all enjoy.
Have a good night.
Say it again. They didn't hear.
Yeah.
I've got the speaker up now.
Oh, have a good night. This was awesome, everybody. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, everybody at Open Source. This was fantastic. Thank you. Just what my soul needed.
Yes.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you. You too, everybody. Enjoy. And those of you hanging out, get home safely.
Yes, we will. Be good when you can. Be well.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh my God. Bye, guys. You're good.